Coming up on Oregon News, Oregon legislators have unveiled a new state budget proposal. We take a look at what it can mean for small businesses and the future of transportation.
And police are cracking down on impaired driving. We'll tell you what they're looking for. All that and more coming up. Good afternoon and welcome to Oregon News. I'm Mitch Reams.
And I'm Paige Harkless.
And here are this week's top stories. The University of Oregon's plan to increase tuition by more than 10% has been denied by the state. According to the Associated Press, the state's Higher Education Coordinating Commission shot down the UO's proposed 10.6% tuition hike late last night. By law, public universities in Oregon must have state approval if they wish to increase tuition by more than 5%. The state also turned down Portland State's tuition increase proposal. Despite a booming economy, Oregon is having problems finding the money to fund necessary services. As a result, Oregon legislators are about to overhaul the state's tax code. Paige Harkless reports.
Here in the Pacific Northwest, we're used to our beautiful mountain peaks, but we don't like peaks in our revenue streams. That's why here in the state capitol, legislators are working on finding ways to make revenue streams more reliable through tax reform. This isn't the first time state lawmakers have tried to address falling tax revenue. Last November, Measure 97 was one of the most expensive ballot measures in state history. More than $47 million was spent on support or opposition of the measure, but ultimately, Oregonians voted it down. That left the state a budget deficit and limited ways to deal with it. State Representative Pam Marsh serves on the Joint Committee on Tax Reform. Marsh says the challenges are great.
The goal is to get us to a point where we don't have to argue and rob every corner we can every 2 years to put together a budget. The goal is to stratify our resource base so that we have different and additional tax sources coming in, and to be able to invest in the institutions that we think are critical.
Chris Vogel of the League of Women's Voters of Oregon has been observing the committee's work. Vogel doesn't think putting the burden on income taxes is the answer.
The most important things that are happening this legislative session are probably happening in that room. As we look at restructuring our existing taxes to do something that is both more stable, and that's a real key, rather than having the peaks and valleys depending upon the current recession or growth cycles.
The committee isn't looking at income taxes. Under the most recent proposal, a new tax called a Commercial Activities Tax, or CAT, is in discussion. It's a less than 1% tax on the sale of goods in Oregon for all businesses whose income exceeds a yet-to-be-determined threshold. The idea is to protect small businesses from paying the CAT tax. This plan would also remove the corporate income tax. The committee's hope is that 75% of the revenue would be invested into the state's school systems, alleviating some of the burden currently on income tax revenues.
That this is the year that this group can take the hard step to figure out what's best for Oregon, not necessarily what might be best for re-election. And so these people are going to be making some really tough choices.
But whatever they decide, she says it may be personally costly for legislators. Paige Harkless, Oregon News. Even if small businesses are protected from paying the proposed commercial activity tax, it can be tough to stay afloat. The U.S. Small Business Administration reports that 20% of businesses fail within their first year. In Lane County, there are 2 organizations working to change that statistic in Oregon. Chloe Spencer has more.
According to a recent Forbes report, Eugene is ranked in the top 100 best cities for business and careers. Still, some businesses struggle to get the help they need, or even start. But if we do a quick internet search,
we come across the offices of Eugene Rain, an organization working to support small businesses.
RAIN was established in 2014. It hosts 12-week accelerator programs which offer intense training to new entrepreneurs. 35 businesses have completed the accelerator program this year. Joe Maruschak, RAIN's director, says one of the main challenges for small businesses is navigating resources.
The information's there, there's resources available, there's grants available, there's assistance available, but navigating it is really, really difficult, and it's not all in one place.
RAIN has helped over 100 entrepreneurs and businesses this year. Another group, Main Street Alliance, works at the state and federal level to support businesses. One of the alliance's goals is to change the business narrative.
So traditionally, big corporations speak for small businesses and pass policy that we feel isn't actually benefiting small businesses.
The Alliance also focuses its attention on helping business owners who are women and people of color. Women and people of color frequently start their businesses at lower wealth levels. Additionally, they are less favored by bankers. But now the Alliance is advocating for small business owners on health policy. The organization is very concerned about the AHCA. Currently, 1 out of every 5 ACA customers, 1.4 million people, is either a small business owner, self-employed, or both.
I think it's going to be bad for everyone, but we believe small businesses are really going to suffer in this environment.
Both organizations emphasize the need to shop locally and, most importantly, invest in small businesses.
If I could send a message to people, it's like realize that what we're doing is very, very important. It's providing opportunity for the future. And unless we have people that are thinking differently and trying the new things and trying to create the tomorrow that we're going to live in, we're not going to have that tomorrow.
Chloe Spencer, Oregon News.
This is National Small Business Month. The U.S. Small Business Administration says these companies are responsible for 2 out of every 3 new jobs in the U.S. If you're interested in starting a business, RAIN is having an info session about their program on May 17th. You can visit their website or Facebook page for more information. From small business to not so small, Dutch Bros has just announced investing in a new headquarters in Grants Pass, Oregon. What was once an upstart coffee business has just invested $5 million to buy new property in downtown Grants Pass. The goal is to create a new headquarters which will serve as the base of all national operations. Dutch Bros was originally started in Grants Pass with the first location sitting on the property that the company now calls its home. Lawmakers are working on a way to pay for improved roads in the state. The Oregon legislature introduced a proposal this week to raise gas taxes and vehicle fees in order to fund transportation improvements. If passed, the measure would raise Oregon's gas tax by 6 cents in 2018 and increase it every year by 2 cents until 2026. Additionally, vehicle fees would rise. Vehicles with a fuel efficiency of over 40 miles per hour would see the biggest increase in fees. According to the first draft, the measure would raise $500 million in 2018. By 2026, it could bring in more than $1 billion. The funding package is aimed at repairing Oregon's aging infrastructure to make bridges and roads earthquake resistant.
A new student housing complex in Eugene has been announced. This one is to be located at the site of Louis Village on Franklin Boulevard. Not everyone is happy to see another high occupancy housing unit go up. High-density student housing like The Hub, 13th and Olive, and 2125 Franklin have been popping up all over Eugene. But architecture student Giselle Sheeran thinks these buildings have a lot of flaws.
They're kind of an eyesore to the Eugene skyline, and the Hub is kind of seemingly randomly placed.
The new crosswalk across Franklin to the front door of The Hub has drawn the criticism of many Eugene residents.
It also interrupts traffic in places that shouldn't really be there, like the curving of Franklin isn't really ready for all those interferences and those pauses.
And yet, despite these issues, local real estate agent Jim St. Clair thinks these buildings do more good than harm.
In general, even the stuff that doesn't look very good, I think has the right, it's been having a good effect in the marketplace.
According to St. Clair, these buildings are better for the environment, closer to campus, and bring rent prices down for every student. Because of high-density housing, Eugene enjoys a vacancy rate of 2 to 3%. If that number came closer to 0, rent prices could skyrocket.
If we had not had these 5,000 to 7,000 bedrooms built with these large buildings along the Franklin corridor, we would basically have a 0% vacancy factor, and rents would have jumped, in my estimation, by another 10 to 15% over the last few years.
Both Sheeran and St. Clair agree that something must be done to address the traffic issues. One solution could be a public walkway, either over or under Franklin Street. If rent prices continue to increase at their current rate, the average Eugene monthly rent will hit 4 figures by 2019. Now coming up after the break, a look at the proposed Lane County jail levy.
And cops are cracking down on mixing drugs with driving.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
The city of Eugene is taking steps to make the area even more bike-friendly. The bike share program that allows people to rent a bicycle for short trips throughout the city is set to come to Eugene this fall. Lena Bond has more.
Thanks to a $900,000 grant given to the city of Eugene from the state, a new program called Bike Share is going to allow people to ride less of these and more of these. The program, expected to start by October of 2017, will begin with 300 bikes and 35 kiosks, which will be distributed across the city. The city has selected Social Bicycles, a New York-based company, to provide the bikes and kiosks, mainly for people interested in taking quick trips around town. Reed Dunbar, the city contact for Social Bicycles, hopes putting more residents on bikes will help the city meet its goals of reducing fossil fuel emissions.
We know that there's a lot of short trips that people would make between campus and downtown and, say, the Whitaker for lunch, that they're taking by car right now, or that they're getting on a bus. And the bus system is overwhelmed, and that's otherwise a good option in terms of climate recovery and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And so we're looking at ways to replace those automobile trips with active trips.
And with bike theft on the rise, Social Bicycles designed their bikes to deter thieves.
Most bike share bikes that have some sort of a station-based system require proprietary wrenches. All the bolts that hold the wheels on and hold the seats on and everything are not standardized.
Eugene officials say they're not sure how much it will cost to rent Social Bicycles, but they plan to model their service similarly to Portland's Bike Town program, where a single 30-minute ride costs $2.50 and rides longer than 30 minutes cost an extra 10 cents per minute. Reporting for Oregon News, I'm Lena Bond.
DUI used to mean drunk driving. With the legalization of marijuana, driving under the influence has taken on a different meaning. Eugene police officers recently showed reporter Mitch Reams the new test they are using to determine if a driver is safe behind the wheel.
The red and blue in your rearview mirror can be enough to get anyone's heart racing. But what can you expect when pulled over for a possible DUI? Without a standardized test to measure impairment due to marijuana, determination of sobriety comes down to this in-the-field test and officers training. The test consists of 3 parts: eye movement, balance, and the ability to follow directions. But without a blood alcohol content level to fall back on, determining sobriety can be complicated. Max Majeski is a lawyer specializing in DUIs and is concerned with the subjectivity of this system.
So there's no exact science when it comes to determine if somebody's high or not on a certain controlled substance.
Officers go through training to be more prepared to identify sobriety in the field. Some of the main things they are looking for are red eyes, drowsiness or the inability to follow directions, and the smell of marijuana on the person or in the vehicle. Officer Bo Macavis of the UOPD recognizes that it isn't a perfect system, but assures that officers have the public's best interest in mind.
That's often the final question they ask themselves is, if my family was out there, if my child was, trick-or-treating or walking across the street, could I trust this driver to be able to, operate his vehicle safely?
Both Macavis and Majeski agree that this is still an area in development, and that the regulations determining sobriety will need to adapt to a changing legal landscape. For Oregon News, I'm Mitch Reams.
Drug recognition experts go through 2-week-long training courses to become certified. This upcoming Tuesday is the deadline for Lane County voters to turn in their ballots for a special election. Among other things, they will need to decide whether to continue a property tax to help fund the county jail. Deuce Whitson has the story.
If Measure 20-271 passes, Lane County residents will continue fronting the bill to help make up for the budget shortfalls to fund the Lane County Jail. For a home valued at $175,000, the homeowner would pay an additional $100 each year in property taxes. But this is nothing new.
We already have the levy in place.
That's the district attorney for Lane County, Patty Perlow. She says the measure is a continuation of an already existing levy that started in 2013. It will maintain the same number of local jail beds for adult offenders in Lane County. And more beds means fewer walking out of these doors and onto the streets before they're supposed to be released. That's something Perlow can get behind.
Prior to the passage of the current levy, violent criminals were being released daily.
The existing levy is popular in Lane County with no major opposition. However, voter turnout for the special election could prove costly for the measure.
If people who support the levy aren't coming out to vote, that would be a worry.
According to Perlow, so far, only 11% of registered Lane County voters have turned in their ballots. Voters have until Tuesday at 8 p.m. to turn in ballots at drop boxes or the Lane County Election Office. Deuce Woodson, Oregon News.
In Tuesday's special election, voters will also choose Lane Community College school board members.
A family cat in Eugene has been euthanized after contracting rabies. County officials say the cat's owner is now receiving treatment for rabies after being bitten. This is the first documented case of rabies for an Oregon cat in nearly 60 years. The disease is rarely found in pets and in Oregon, but is most often found in bats. People have been reminded to vaccinate their pets because, while rabies is rare, it could be deadly. Last weekend, the Eugene Marathon came to town and brought a lot of visitors with it. Armin Aradian reports on what big events like the marathon mean to one local business.
That is one of the many sounds that can be heard in Eugene throughout the year. Over the past decade, Eugene has hosted a wide variety of national sporting events, from 3 straight track and field Olympic trials to NCAA golf championships last year. Local businesses have seen an increase in tourism from these events, and because of all the new faces, they're seeing an increase in revenue as well.
It could double essentially, so it could be a 100% boost to sales.
Chris Loke is the general manager at Wild Duck Cafe. The restaurant is one of the most popular food destinations for tourists going to events near the University of Oregon campus area.
So we typically see it a day or two before, depending on what the event typically is. And usually that's associated with if it's a close event or if there's a lot of people staying in the hotels nearby.
Even though Loke says there is almost always a guarantee that revenue will raise during the Pac-12 championships this weekend here at Hayward Field, he also says there is always an uncertainty when events like this arrive.
We kind of guess and try to base it off what recurred in the past or what we could expect, but you never know what's going to happen. We may be empty on a Friday night.
Though Loke remains unsure of what dollar value each event will bring, recent numbers show that they will still be business friendly. When the golf championships and Olympic trials came to Eugene last year, there was an estimated economic impact of over $40 million. With the NCAA Outdoor Championships coming in early June, many businesses expect the same bump. Armin Aradian, Oregon News.
Coming up in sports, Oregon Track and Field will shoot for the Triple Crown, and we will take a thrust at the art of fencing.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals 25. Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome to Oregon Sports. I'm Deuce Woodson. Today we'll talk about baseball and softball. Both sports started their series early. Starting with baseball, in the Civil War that's not so civil, the #1 ranked Oregon State Beavers dominated the Oregon Ducks on Thursday night at PK Park. The Beavers hit 2 home runs in the 4th inning, and the Ducks scoring was MIA, missing in action. The Ducks were able to get 9 hits on the Beavers pitching staff, but they weren't able to turn those hits into runs, with the sole run coming in the 5th inning thanks to an RBI. In the 8th, the Beavers poured it on, scoring 3 more runs. Like I said, not so civil. The series will continue Friday and Saturday night at PK Park. And unlike their baseball counterparts, Oregon softball is flying high as the team turns its attention to the postseason. The Ducks cut down the tree, beating the Stanford Cardinal 9-2 Thursday night, taking the first game in the 3-game series. During their first 5 innings, a search party seemed like it was needed to find the Ducks' offense. But that quickly changed when the Ducks scored a combined 8 runs in the last 2 innings. And from bats to swords, reporter Spencer Guymont summons his inner Zorro and shows us there's more to fencing than just swordplay.
When it comes to sports, most of us think of basketball, baseball, or football. But there's a sport offered here in Eugene that's a little less conventional. And that sport is fencing. Sean Hayes is the owner and head instructor at Northwest Fencing Academy located in downtown Eugene. Hayes teaches more than just fencing. He has 20+ years of experience in the medieval martial arts that fencing comes from. Hayes says fencing requires much more than just sheer athletic ability.
When you pick up that sword and you face off against somebody else, you have to outthink them. You don't just outpower them, you don't outhit them. You have to outthink them and make their sword work in a way that works for you.
This one-on-one competition is part of why students like Amber Sherman enjoy practicing the medieval martial arts.
I've been a runner, but no organized sports. So this is kind of a great middle ground between being in a team environment, but still having that personal competition that you would get from something like running.
For those looking to take a stab at something new, fencing and the medieval martial arts can offer a great way to stay active. Just be careful though, because it's harder than you might think. For Oregon News, I'm Spencer Guymont.
Touche, Spencer. Touche. Moving on to some other sports in their postseason, Oregon Track and Field is preparing for this weekend's Pac-12 championships at Hayward Field. Going on to the postseason, both men's and women's teams will look to add a little more bling in the trophy case in the Bowerman building, especially the women's team. The women have a chance to do what's never been done in program history, win the Triple Crown. The team already won the cross-country and indoor national championships, but now there's just one more. Distance runner Maddie Schmadek talked about this crowned jewel.
The Triple Crown is on everyone's minds. I mean, we've done 2 out of the 3, so it's hard not to get too excited about that.
Events for this event start Saturday at 11:35 a.m. And speaking of winning women, the Oregon women's golf team is headed to Sugar Grove, Illinois to compete in the team's second straight NCAA championship. This past weekend, the team finished 3rd in the NCAA regionals in Lubbock, Texas, the best regional finish in program history. Last year, the team reached the quarterfinals, tying for 5th place. The championship begins on Friday. And so now, Kale, will we be seeing tank tops and sundresses or raincoats and rain clouds? What are you thinking, wet or dry?
Think wet, Deuce. It promises to be yet another rainy weekend in the Pacific Northwest, so keep those sundresses in the closet. I really do hate to say it, folks, but it is going to be rainy and cloudy and gray all weekend long. We're going to see showers throughout the day today with highs in the mid-50s and lows around 43. Might be time to break out that book you've been meaning to read. I know I will. Saturday looks to be about the same, high of 54, but a low of 41. I hate to sound like a broken record, but Sunday's going to be a rainy day with highs just south of 60 and lows near 40. Eugene is set to host the Pac-12 championships this weekend, like Deuce said, so if you're planning on heading over to Hayward tomorrow, bring a rain jacket. And if you were thinking of escaping the rain by going north to Portland, think again. It's going to be rainy and gray up there all weekend long with highs in the mid to high 50s and lows in the mid 40s. Saturday is going to be a day for the indoors to be sure, with high chances of rain all day long, highs in the mid 50s and lows staying in the low 40s. Sunday is going to stay pretty gloomy, and although it will warm up slightly, with the high sneaking up to 61, the low will stay about 45. Now all this rain and clouds in these parts over the next few days has got me thinking of sunshine in my hometown of Nevada City, California. It is of course Mother's Day on Sunday, so Mom, if you're watching, you can expect a pretty pleasant weekend of sun. Today will be slightly cloudy with highs in the mid 50s and lows near about 40, so maybe a sweater day. Saturday will be about the same, but those clouds should clear up somewhat, with the high rising to 57, while the low will go to about 43. Folks, Nevada City is only a quick 7-hour drive to the south, so if you want to get out of the rain and into the sun, could be the perfect weekend getaway. Now folks, rain or shine, clear skies or rainy days, We all love our moms. So happy Mother's Day to everyone. But if you're celebrating in Eugene, maybe celebrate indoors. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Kale. Speaking of all that rain, for the first time since 2011, the Pacific Northwest won't have to worry about drought. This is according to the latest U.S. Drought Monitor report. A spokesperson at Oregon's Climate Office says the Northwest has seen high amounts of precipitation during the wet season, which began in October. October, February, March, and April, typically drier months, were wetter than usual across the region. The news isn't so great for other parts of the nation like Florida, which is experiencing its worst drought since 1907.
After the break, stick around to see some guys try to walk in high heels.
And we'll give you some good reasons to stop feeding bread to the fluffy ducks you love down by the river.
Never forget the day our landlord called and said, read your lease. No pets allowed. My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
A sorority at the University of Oregon, Alpha Chi Omega, brings attention to domestic violence with their annual event, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes.
Today, I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on what it means to walk a mile in the shoes of a survivor.
The event is for men and women to come together and provide support and solidarity for domestic violence survivors while fundraising for Women's Space, a local women's shelter. Alpha Chi Omega provides shoes of all sizes for men and women to pick and wear for the mile around campus. The mile starts at the Urban Memorial Union Amphitheater and finishes with greeters at the Alpha Chi Omega House. Walkers could find tables set up with various information on hotlines and support. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten. Vice President of Philanthropy at Alpha Chi Omega, Sage Asher, says she is proud that her sorority can bring awareness to the issue. All proceeds from the event were donated to Women's Space and goes to funding their safe houses, feeding survivors, and helping the women and families in Eugene.
Your feathered friends also need your help to live longer lives. So don't feed them bread. Tossing bread to geese and ducks may seem harmless, but bread can cause a disease called angel wing. Angel wing is an uncurable wing deformity that usually destroys a bird's ability to fly. Birds develop the condition after people feed them unhealthy food. Bread offers little nutritional value and can lead to extreme weight problems because of the calories. Angel wing can be reduced if people stop feeding the birds human food. You can still feed the birds, just toss them some oats or seed instead of bread. Now that's all from Oregon News Desk. I'm Mitch Reams.
And I'm Paige Harkless. And from everyone in Oregon News, happy Mother's Day. I know I'm going to see mine.
I will too, and I'm ever so thankful.
Thank you, moms.